I have definitely noticed that myself. There's sort of like a different thing now where there's like the anti Rust sort of hype where it's like I don't want anything to do with Rust, and I know that when you announced this there was some of that as well where it's like how could you possibly use Rust? Because I think there was this idea, especially from early interviews you'd done, that you were this crusader against Rust. So
Mm.
I've watched the interviews. That's not at all what you sounded like, but it is kind of a lot of clips of you speaking about Rust were often shared around like amongst that crowd. So when you were like, "Oh, we're now going to use Rust," I guess some people felt like this was a betrayal, I guess, a sudden change. I don't know. But like the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've always kind of just looked at the language you're using as a tool, right? And you're going to use whatever the best tool for the job is. It could have been, in another world, it could have been Objective C. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd say that's. I mean,
Could have been
I'm a
Java
human
if we're
being,
back in the 90s.
right? That would have been nice, actually. No, I mean, I'm a human being, so I obviously sometimes have personal biases, and I
Mhm,
make silly mistakes, or I get too excited about something.
mhm, mhm,
Uh, but I try to um, work in the way that you described, where like languages are tools, and um, whatever tool is best is the one that we should try to use.
mhm,
And then there's a tremendous cost to switching tools that just keeps growing as you invest more and more in those tools. At least that was the sort of the calculus for the like history of programming
mhm,
until very recently, where we have started getting these tools that can do language translations for us to a pretty satisfying degree, in my opinion.
mhm,
And that changes a lot of the assumptions that
mhm.
we have been tied to for a long time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, languages are tools. Same thing with like text editors and IDEs or whatever. Like everything is just a tool.
Mhm,
And I see recently on social media, there's a lot of debating around like people feel like they're losing their identity as programmers because
mhm,
of these clankers that come and program for you.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and I don't I don't find that so easy to relate to because I've never really identified with like the act of typing the code myself. Like
mhm.
that wasn't necessarily what it was about for me, but it was about like making something happen with the computer. And now we have new ways of doing that, and I want to master those things. Um, so yeah, it's just more tools, I guess. And I'm not married to the new tools either. If somebody comes up with a even better tool tomorrow, then I'll be happy to mess with that. Um, if I look back though, like I think it's fair to say that I probably allowed some of the hype around Rust to Um, keep me away from it longer than
Mm.
I should have. Like, it probably did become a factor that the community was a bit overly enthusiastic,
Sure,
let's
sure,
say.
sure.
um, it, they were not really helping
Mhm.
with with getting people to adopt, even though I suppose that's what they were hoping to do. Um, but ultimately, like, I'm the one who has to look back and say like, ah, this would have been nice to do 2 years ago.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, unfortunate, but we have to make progress where we are.
Mhm.
So the pragmatic choice is to adopt the language that the industry is moving towards, and gives us a bunch of things that we want, and lets us build towards a better future with a better browser. Yeah, and like you say, like a lot of people are reflexively anti-Rust,
Mhm.
and I think those people are now disappointed. They feel like there's a grand betrayal. Um, but I'm not super concerned about that. I don't think that matters. I think what matters is that we build the best browser that we can build so that people have another browser to choose from, and we believe that we can do a better job with better tools, and we're basing our decisions on that, basically.
Fair enough. I do want to move to the AI question just a moment. I want
Mhm.
to touch on the two things about Rust before we move on. Firstly,
Yes.
platform support. So, what platforms are supported by the browser? Because this Rust. Oh my god! Every time I bring up Rust platform support always comes up as a topic. I'm so sick of talking about it. What platforms are planning to be supported by the browser?
Well, so far we have officially committed to Mac OS and Linux,
Mhm.
but we also have a community effort to support Windows, and we have continuous testing on Windows.
Mhm.
So Windows will happen. It's just that we um, can't spread ourselves too thin with commitments at this stage.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's the major trio basically. Like Linux, Mac OS, and Windows are going to be the main systems in the future. And then I guess what you're getting at is that then
P-
somebody's going to
yeah,
come up and be like, "Hey, what about NetBSD?
what about my Spark server? Some nonsense.
Yeah, what about my Alpha station?" Um, come
And
on.
I get it in the conversation about the Linux kernel, but that's just not a relevant discussion here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we are building a browser for the contemporary web,
Mhm.
um, which kind of presupposes that you have a reasonably modern computer. Um,
Something for the last
the
30
web
years
being
is
what it is.
generally a good plan, yeah.
Yeah, I would even say something from the last 10 years,
Mhm.
ideally. Um, and I kind of think of it as one of the luxuries that we have is that we know that our browser doesn't have to come out today.
Mhm.
Um, and we don't have like a public 1.0 or whatever for another 2 years. And so we can sort of try to build for the computer that people will have then,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, and not worry so much about people with their 2005 computers, who we do hear from. They are also very enthusiastic about their you know Pentium 4s or whatever they have. um, and it is unfortunate that we can't support every PC that ever existed, but I don't think that that's the right investment for us to worry about that.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
I also want to mention people are gonna if I don't mention people are gonna bring it up. Rust compile time. Rust compile time.
Hmm.
Is the browser gonna take forever to compile now? Has this ruined all development effort?
Uh, so far it has added, I think 4 or 5 seconds or something like that. So at least on my machine, I'm not super worried about it. But our C++ code base was already a big, thick monster to compile.
Mhm.
So that's just the nature of browsers, I think.
How big is
And
the browser at this point?
yeah,
How many lines of code do you reckon?
it's about 500,000 lines,
Yeah,
something like that.
and you're nowhere near
Um,
done. So, do you have
yeah,
like a
indeed. I mean, it will never be done.
do you have like a sort of estimation? Maybe it's hard to make that estimation. Like what, how big 1.0 would be? Like how many lines of code the project would be at that point?
I would love it if we can stay under a mil.
Mhm.
Um, but it it's unclear to me at this stage how that will work out.
Mhm.
And it also depends a little bit on how you count.
Mm.
So there are some APIs that are just gigantic,
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
like the WebGL stuff, WebRTC, those kind of things. Um, do you want to count those lines of code, even though it's like all very, very repetitive boilerplate stuff?
Mhm.
Or, yeah. Um, but we're hoping to stay at I hope that we can stay at a scale that's like a tenth of the size of any of the other browsers.
Mhm.
Um, that would make me happy if we can prove that you can build a usable browser in like a tiny fraction of the size.
It is crazy that a million lines of code is still considered a tiny fraction of how big browsers are at this point.
Yes. Well, without that, how are you going to get x86 emulators and
That's
CSS?
true. That you make a solid argument. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.